I'd like to announce that a quorum is present. The meeting is duly called, and notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. The time is 6:03 p.m. We ask that all those in attendance conduct themselves respectfully at all times during this meeting. Any outbursts or disruptive behaviors may result in your removal from this evening's board work session. The following board members are in attendance: Tracy Miller, Dr. Buddy Bonner, Christy Hassett, Jenny Prozik, Sheila Taylor. Board Vice President Alice Lasan and Board Secretary Catherine Sells are unable to attend this evening's work session. I've asked Board Member Christy Hassett to lead us in prayer.
Everyone, bow your head if you would like to. Join me. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you very much for this beautiful day that you have given us, as evident by the wonderful sunset that you have provided. I ask that you please protect everyone in this whole district, parents, teachers, community members, our wonderful teachers and students and administrators as we go through the rest of this December, because I know it can be a struggle for many. I hope that everyone is healthy and happy during the December timeframe with their holidays with their families, especially those who might be struggling with some issues. As we continue on the rest of the school year, please keep us invigorated and ready to finish off the school year wonderfully as we return back in January, and we do all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ms. Hassett. We'll now convene into closed session as authorized by Texas Government Code Section 551, specifically 551.071 and 089. The time is 6:05 p.m. Okay, thank you for your patience. We're back on record in open session, having returned from closed session. The time is 7:13 p.m. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge.
All right, our vision statement is all of our students enjoy thriving, productive lives in a future they create. And our mission statement, students, staff, and community design and implement a learning organization that provides engaging, innovative experiences every day.
Thank you, Dr. Rapp. 4 cornerstones, Ms. Gall.
Absolutely. Okay, our focus tonight on student learning. I ensure learning is based on defined standards. We provide meaningful experiences in academic and non-academic areas.
Gall. Persons desiring to address the Board of Trustees must fill out a speaker's card. In accordance with district board policy, only speaker's card addressing items on this evening's agenda will be acknowledged. No presentation shall exceed 3 minutes. The board cannot deliberate on any subject that is not included on the agenda. Each speaker will receive a written follow-up from the district in the next 3 business days. The board and district administration values the feedback shared during this time of the meeting, and we are grateful for the continued partnership between LISD and the families and community we serve. I don't believe we have any speakers. Is that correct? I can't see Jim. No? Okay. All right, we're going to move 2 items up here because of some attendees. Ms. Maloney, we're going to move 4A and 4B up. This would be Texas Central Bus Student Transportation Update and the Delinquent Tax Collection.
Thank you, President Miller, Dr. Rabb, members of the board. This is our update from Texas Central. And as they make their way to the front for the presentation, there is some historical information and the discussion item, as well as some of the day-to-day operations. But I'd like to introduce Mr. Jim Coons, the Texas District Manager, and he will introduce his team and deliver the presentation for the update this evening.
Good evening. My name is Jim Coons, and I am the District Manager of Texas Central. I have my staff behind me here. So I have Donnie Brown, who is our manager at Mill. Behind him, I have Todd Hornsby, our safety manager. Josh Lovingood next to him, he is our shop manager. Aaron Robbins is our colony manager. Our brand new senior contract manager, Patrick Woods. Today's his first day, so welcome, Patrick. And then I have a couple visitors from up north, our business development guys, Joe Fessler and Colin Clark. So thank you guys for attending. We appreciate it. So, do I not have to hold that? That's great. So tonight I just wanted to kind of give you guys an overall brief of where we're at today after the school startup. So we operate and maintain LSISD's fleet of 285 buses. Currently, we are 12 days ahead of scheduled preventative maintenance. Your fleet's actually mechanically performing above expectations. They're very, very great buses that you guys have provided, and very, very nice. So we appreciate that, and thank you. We operate approximately 231 routes on any given day. That's 153 regular, 78 special ed programs. Started the 2022-23 school year with 224 drivers. Actually, that's increased a little bit since the time this is written. We're up to 226 with 17 recruits in permit class and then 10 recruits in behind the wheel training. This is probably one of the first times that we've been this close to a full complement of drivers to be able to service you and your students since before COVID. So it's very, very promising. So we have an average daily ridership during the previous school year, 21-22, was 16,834. This year's ridership for the 22-23 school year is currently sitting at 17.6. So we've had some nice increase in ridership getting students to and from school. We started school year, our on-time performance was down a little bit compared to last year. Our performance goal is 95%, and year-to-date, the average is 82, but trending upward. Our last, we were at 86 on-time performance, so we are improving day by day. The performance continues to improve as we continue to look for out-of-box solutions for covering routes and those types of things. As soon as we get all those people hired, we'll be in great shape, and that will drastically improve for you. Here Comes the Bus app. So the Here Comes the Bus app is a live application that allows you to view your real-time location of your child's bus and receive notification via your smartphone or computer. Okay. LASD has 7,404 active Here Comes the Bus accounts, representing approximately 7,800 students. And so this is an increase of 43% on the active accounts from the 21-22 school year. So we have a lot of students that are now using this and families that are now using this to get live updates of where the bus is. And in this year, we added the feature to allow push notifications and email notifications directly to users. So this allows your families and the students to be able to get up-to-the-minute live updates of what's going on with the bus if it's running late or we just actually implemented this and did some training here at the beginning of November, so the dispatchers are still using this tool and being able to provide those updates. So emphasis on customer service. So every year we do a principal survey. So last year it came back at 84% satisfaction. It was a drop from the previous year, mostly due to driver shortage and a combination of routes. So this year we increased some call centers. So the call center that we use every year, we increased service response and reduced hold times by adding the ability to leave a message. So last year we weren't able to do that. Once you're in the queue, we're always in the queue until somebody answered your call. So this year we gave them an option to leave a message, and then we responded to the message within 24 to 48 hours, depending on when it was left. We also added some separate phone lines for the campus administrators to access dispatch centers directly. So if they needed you, or if they needed us, they could get directly to us and not have to wait through the call center or have to be routed through somebody else to get to us. So we could increase service there. So, and then lastly, our recruitment and retention incentives. So we adjusted the driver sign-on and referral bonus. So we are currently running a $2,000 referral and a sign-on bonus for our employees now and then our future employees. That is a brief overview of the startup.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I think we've had a better start this year than we've had in quite a few years. I know for Ms. Hassett and I, it's the third entity we've dealt with, and for most it's the second. So great start of the year. So any comments or questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Take
Jeremy.
care.
Thank you, President Miller. This next item is a review of our process for collecting delinquent taxes. And I'll welcome Corey Fickus and Chuck Elzey to the podium. Just a reminder that the cost for collecting the delinquent taxes is paid by the taxpayer and is not an expense for LISD. July 1 is when this process starts, when real property becomes delinquent, and the 20% contingent fee is added. These are specialized legal services, and currently LISD is under contract with Lineberger, Gogan, Blair, and Sampson for the collection of delinquent taxes. Included in that contract is a fee-sharing agreement with the LZ Law Firm. We are at the end of a 3-year renewal, and we will have our last option to renew for another 3 years, and that will be coming up. I did ask Corey this evening to include some information on a tax provision that Texas businesses have been taking advantage of in recent years. I included some information about that in the update. I did not realize that this was going on until I met Corey early on in my tenure here in LISD.
Thank you so much, Paige. My name's Corey Fickus. I'm one of the partners with the Linebarger Law Firm. My partner, Chuck Elsey, with the Elsey Law Firm, we've been working together to collect, is it on? To collect the delinquent taxes for Lewisville ISD, pardon me. And we had a little presentation with the report, but first we wanted to go over something that, it's what Paige had mentioned. And this started as an amendment to the tax code back in 1992. The appraisal district, which y'all understand is a separate board, completely separate entity, has the responsibility to value every property in the county. And there's a number of methods that they can do that, but they're supposed to come to market value. And in 92, they added this language called equal and uniform, and that's just the colloquial term we use for this process, equal and uniform. Well, since then, courts have interpreted what that meant and have expanded it. It used to be a term that was intended for a property that was really unique, and maybe there wasn't a comparison in the county, so you could say, well, we could find something else in the state. Well, the courts have expanded it now to the point that a company can use other properties in the state to essentially drive down their value or decrease the increase in value by claiming that other properties outside of that county are comparable. Well, this has been going on for a number of years, but it's really started to gain a lot of attention in the last couple of years, especially as we've all experienced rising property values and what that does for our tax bill. And I've read a ton of articles, but just before Paige and I met a few months ago to talk about another issue, our report and some other issues, the Star-Telegram out of Fort Worth put an article together that really outlined this with a lot of clarity. Wow, I think that just clicked in. And so you've all got that in your packet to read if you're interested in it. I think it's one of the best presentations that I've seen. So the process has been going on for years. It's perfectly legal. Any one of us can do it. Except the reality is that for our homes, the economies aren't there because the savings are not sufficient enough to justify the cost and effort of going through it. But if you're a major corporation, you really can take advantage of it because you've got lawyers on standby, and I'll talk about legal fees, but also you gain the experience, and so you can kind of create this cycle of work. There is also an element of this, which is if you win, so if you get the appraisal district, if the appraisal district has to lower your property value, you also get your attorney fees paid. And so there's a double-edged sword because you end up with lowering values and increasing costs from the appraisal districts. And I couldn't get the numbers from DCAD this week, but in talking with Dallas and Tarrant CAD, they've seen a quadrupling of their legal fees for this process in the last decade. So what I did was I took one company that has 4 properties in Lewisville ISD, and I specifically left the name off, and looked at their 2013 valuation and then their 2022 valuation. And you can see, and this is the assessed value, which is supposed to be off of market value. There's been a decline in the last, 9 years of over $2 million for 3 of those properties. And you can see the percentages to the right there. The third property it listed, it shows that it's actually increased, but if you'll notice, if you look online and track it, all the 2022 values are a little bit higher because the process by which you use the equal and uniform provisions has not been finalized yet. So what happens is you get your value in April and May, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit, and then you appeal it, then you file a lawsuit in the district court, and you sue the appraisal district. The appraisal district settles at some point, or you get a judgment, reduces your value. You've already probably paid your taxes for that year, and then you get a refund. That refund is basically what brought this issue to a head that made it really relevant for Paige and her team, because refunds throughout the year are often set against delinquent collection, since that's the only revenue coming in on the collection front when you get out of the collection cycle, the prime collection cycle time. So the Linebarger Graphics Department, which clearly did not take advantage of one of the wonderful programs that LISD has, which is just me, put together this little picture on the side, and I wanted to kind of describe it. And this is very general terms. There's a lot more specificity to it, because if I knew how to do it, Chuck and I'd go into that business, because I'm sure it's really lucrative. You take your property in Lewisville ISD, and when you challenge the value, you say, well, look, I also have a property that is the only thing that's truly comparable, because nothing else in this area is as similar as my other properties. So look at my one in Lubbock, and look at my property in Abilene or Big Spring and Harlingen, and see how low theirs are. Well, as we could all imagine, property in the largest, fastest growing metro region in the United States has a little higher base value than maybe in some of our other cities in Texas. Then you go to Lubbock, and the Lubbock the Lubbock CAD gets told, well, have you seen what happened to my property in Lewisville? They decreased it. And look at Harlingen and Big Spring and these other small towns. And that keeps going around. And so I had always presented this as an idea of decreasing the growth. Well, then I started looking at some properties and realizing, no, in the vast majority, especially the really competent, sophisticated companies, it's decreasing the value, not just the growth, but the value. So what you're seeing here is not a decrease in growth, but an actual decrease in value in a same period when I think that any of us would be hesitant to find a piece of property that did not increase in value over the same time period. Now, there's we don't take a stance on the righteousness or wrongness of this, because there are reasons why this has persisted. One is that most corporations are viewed as having a lower impact on some of the governmental entities they sit in, because maybe they don't have children in school or they're not using other features. They don't have a homestead agreement. It's just something that's going on right now. We thought it was pretty important to bring to your attention. And also when we get to the collection numbers, you'll see how that refund number impacts the way we present our collections to y'all. So this was kind of a little overview of it, but I wanted to leave it open in case there's any questions on how this process works.
And it has had an impact on that line item in our budget. And that was the very first question I asked, is why are we seeing this dip? And it was 2 or 3 years ago. And this is the reason for that.
And of course, one property in the district doesn't affect funding on a whole generally on a district this size. But this is happening across the state, and so what that means is that the pie of eligible tax dollars is much smaller than what it would be without this. Our legislative team says don't expect any changes, so there are unlikely to be any changes on this. So it's a situation that we have, and we thought it was interesting and relevant to what we're seeing in the district, because you have so much large commercial property growth here.
And I would like to reiterate what you said is very well spoken, but then other businesses can say, hey, my business is like so-and-so's business, and since you've reduced their property, now you need to reduce mine because mine is similar. So it can be this domino effect within the LISD just because they're similar businesses. Even if one person can't use his similar business, he has to go to Lubbock. It's a domino effect of others then, because then the CADs don't want to go to lawsuit, because then they would spend even more money on a lawsuit, so they always have to figure out whether they're going to litigate the issue. So there's this reoccurring, and then the reason why, in my opinion, it won't be fixed in legislature, because there could be a sitting legislator who actually has a law firm that does this particular work and broadcasts it to help people do said information, take advantage of the current law.
We're agnostic on the issue, but I agree. Yes, it is the case that's exactly what happened. So we wanted to present this to you because we thought it'd be really interesting and a little bit relevant. And as Buddy said, he joined the school board because he wanted to learn about tax collection. And so.
Corey, I've restrained from asking you a question about property taxes, but thank you.
Corey, we love to talk about CAD here.
I guess I'm aware.
We'll provide some restraint this evening, but we love to talk about CAD here. Go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. There's a lot more on the valuation issues that I think are really interesting and bring up some novel ideas, and I know that there's a lot of different elements to how we address those and how the legislature addresses them, but they do ultimately affect the overall pie of what's available for funding schools. And your funding system is so much more complex than schools and than cities and counties, but it's still a matter of how big is the pie and how's it going to be shared. So,
do you expect the legislature, because they will be talking about CADs this year, to, if you look at legislative priorities, do you see anything changing materially that might change what you guys are looking at down the road?
So far, the biggest change the biggest bills that we're seeing that would affect, I guess, taxpayers and where we are is more limits on the increase in growth of residential homestead properties. We expect almost nothing will change with commercial properties that would increase revenue. There's been a number of bills filed this session, not just for CADs. Yeah, they're always tweaking the CAD formula, how they're doing everything. And a few years ago, maybe 3 sessions ago, they had a special committee through the summer that went and investigated CADs and said, well, y'all are increasing the values. And then they realized, well, the values are being increased based on the formulas that the legislature passed, and they must be held at a certain value. Otherwise, TEA comes in and says that you're underfunded, and now you're not contributing to the state funding scheme enough. So there wasn't any headway on that. Then they looked at tax offices and decided that it wasn't the tax offices. They had just sent the bills. Then they went and looked at the entities, and that's when we got our caps in the last session. So it's likely that we'll see more caps, but all the bills that we track, and we only track bills that are related to appraisal districts, tax offices, and tax rate assessment type of issues, so the things that relate to what we're around. Really not a lot of new meat this year. A lot of bills that have been filed every year in the past few years, and just kind of increasing what they did last year, so decreasing the percent that you can raise your rates. But that's really all we're seeing so far. But we're keeping an eye on that. And of course, if something comes up, we'll make sure to let you know. I wanted to give a little bit of an overview and another element out of the Linebarger Design Office. Created this little calendar. It's a kind of a cycle of the tax collection process, because I kind of throw out some terms that may not mean much without a little context. So if you'll look at about 4 o'clock on this, if you imagine a clock face, where it says appraisal notices and value challenges, I want to start there. The appraisal district sets out their values in May, starts sending out notices, and you have a little time to appeal. You can challenge those. And then at the same time, the entity, the school district, is working on setting a tax rate. Tax rate is applied to the value, and then the tax bills come out in October. So October 1 to January 31st is when tax bills are due by. So you have to pay before the end of the month in January. That's the time when the tax office receives the majority of tax revenue. And just for the record, this year, 98.4% of Lewisville ISD taxpayers paid their taxes on time. So it's really about 1.5% to 2% that annually do not pay their taxes by January 31st. After January 31st, taxes go delinquent and interest and penalties start to accrue. They have not been turned over to us yet for collections, though. In April, and I don't have it on there just because it's a matter of crowding, but in April, business personal property taxes are turned over to us. And business personal property taxes are the tax on your furniture, fixtures, inventory, and equipment. So it's not the land, but it's everything you use to operate. And then in July, the real property gets turned over for us to go pursue in collections. And then we start collecting those. But as you can see, the green part is October through July, or through January, when 98% of the tax revenue comes in. The rest of the year, any revenue that comes in is generally done by our firms to help recover delinquent taxes, and that's where most of the refunds happen to come in, because that's how long it takes litigation to get to judgment or for settlement to occur, and then you get those refunds back. So just a little bit of context so we know where we are in the process. And then this is a little analysis. Now, all of this is based off of our report that was provided to the district, I think in August. We do a July 1 through June 30th analysis, because that's when we start getting accounts, right, in July 1. But y'all are on a September 1 calendar, so we also do a separate September 1 report. But this one is how we kind of do an analysis of the overall performance, because that's the year that we had it. Otherwise, we'd be looking at 11 months or 10 months of collections. On the right, I gotta make sure I'm looking right. On the left side, there's the pie chart. That's everything that's delinquent. That's due to LISD. The blue section is lawsuits, and these numbers have changed a little bit. Those are accounts that have been in lawsuit. The red is clean. A majority of those are going to be in lawsuit now, because we're 5 months into the collection cycle of this year. But the interesting thing, I think, on this chart is that green one, and I want to kind of give some context to that. That green section is about 24%, 23%, and it's deferrals. And I'm not sure what context y'all have and experience y'all have with deferrals, but the tax code allows groups of individuals to have a deferral on their taxes, meaning that if they don't pay their taxes, there is no enforcement activity, so they can stay in their home. The main group is over 65 individuals, and the idea was if you're fixed income, you shouldn't be subject to some sort of punishment for not being able to pay your taxes if they increase. Another big group is disabled veterans, and those are kind of the two main groups. There's nothing that can be done about that. There's nothing to worry about that. We just like to, it's just an interesting element of the pie chart. And ultimately, they do get paid at some point. There's a reduced penalty that accrues, or interest that accrues on them, and we just keep track of them. Our firm actually has an exemption analysis program. I don't think the appraisal district is using one right now, but we have a program, so we're monitoring those to make sure that if somebody passes away, we're notifying their heirs, hey, by the way, here's what you were left. Make sure you take care of this before it gets more expensive. But that's something we want to give some context to. And then on the right side, it's just an analysis of accounts turned over in July of this year, so that'd be the 2021 taxes, as compared to the prior year. This was a big drop this year. So less people are delinquent, more people pay their taxes on time. That's a good thing for the school district. And I do think that the number we've gotten to this year is actually more consistent with where we were before COVID. So we just had a really big spike during the years of 2020, and now that's coming back down. And that's pretty well expected. We've seen that across the state. So it doesn't mean much other than we're back to where we probably should have been originally. If there's any questions, please let me know. I was told 40, 45 minutes. No, I'm just kidding.
I have one question on the slide before.
Oh, yeah.
We have a legislative priority on schedules, timelines, and I'm not sure if you know the intricacies on how we then have to go to TEA and provide them all of that kind of shenanigans. I would love to know if you have a professional opinion on how we can change the timeline to make it so that we have more time during that whole process for us. You don't have to have an answer now. I will email you later if you might have, but I'm sure Ms. Maloney could give you all the lowdown of our issues with that.
The time between getting your certified values and having to turn around and get approval?
We would like more time in that, and so if you could have any professional information on how we can suggest a better timeline for us without schmamming the other entities, I will email you later for that.
Yeah, let me talk to my legislative team, and we'll get back with you on that. Yeah.
Thanks.
It's a crush for every district, and y'all are on a September 1 calendar. Even the cities and schools or county that are on October 1 feel the crush, but they have an extra 30 days.
This is definitely a state,
Yeah.
but although cities and counties don't have to go to TEA, and
right,
so
right.
they don't have the extra impetus that we do, and it affects everyone. So
Yeah.
I think if we would come up with some suggested language on changes that wouldn't interfere too much with other entities, I would greatly appreciate it.
I've got some follow-up questions, and I'll get with you and Paige after we can talk about that.
Okay,
That one-
mainly get with her, and I'm just
Okay.
gonna bug her.
All right. Just briefly on the collection history, this is the last 12 months, so this is the last tax year cycle. So we're talking about the collection of 2020 taxes, because right now we're in the middle of the 2021 cycle. Overall, base tax collections of $6.8 million, and then if you add penalties and interest, that gets you to right about $7.8 million. But then you can see that second line, base tax refunds of $5.6 million. So a big chunk of what was collected was actually paid back in refunds, except that I would bet that almost 100% of those refunds were not delinquent taxes that were paid. They were people that paid their taxes on time, were challenging their value, and then got a refund later. And so it's not necessarily part of what we do, but we like to report it because we think it answers some questions, it fills in some gaps on why those numbers don't seem to match up sometimes. But also it's just an indication of how big the amount of refunds are each year. Briefly on the litigation, the collection process is all about slowly increasing the pressure and the reminders and getting somebody to resolution, because ultimately that's what we want. We want everybody to maintain their property and pay their taxes as they're required so that we're all sharing the burden evenly. But every once in a while you do have to file litigation to get that emphasis across. So in that last year, we filed 179, or suits on 179 accounts, and we resolved 253, which of course includes prior year. A lot of those suits end in payment arrangements. That's actually the vast majority. We sell very few properties at tax sales. That's the ultimate remedy for not paying your taxes, and it almost never happens. I think the last 3 sales I've been to, the property did not go to the sale because the person paid before they got there. And that's the intent, is that there are different elements of pressure to say you've got to get this resolved. And really for us, resolved is a payment arrangement. Just start making payments, and then we can get you to final resolution. You can see the breakdown of how those accounts were resolved, but basically they were all resolved because they were paid at some point. Or it's very rare we might have a wrong party in a suit because we're really filing against the people that are legally required. But those are not counted as dismissals, right? You're only dismissed if you pay. So, and then briefly on the history. So this is the 3 years of the blue line is the turnover, and this does not include 2021, so you don't see the big drop, but the drop will put us back in line with 2019. And then the orange line is the total base tax dollars collected for the last 3 years. And so just a comparison of where the collections are to turnover. So we are recovering more than you're asking us to collect each year, which isn't the best metric of how we do. Honestly, the best metric of how we do is what % of what we got turned over do we collect. But from a financial perspective, you need to be recovering everything that you didn't get paid on time. And so that's part of what we think is important. But also we think there's a really important message to actually enforcing the obligation to pay the taxes. None of us like taxes. Regardless of what political side you're on, nobody likes paying taxes. But that's how we fund our civic services, and so that's an important component of what we have to do as citizens. And then this is something that we've been really proud of in our office, and I was proud of because I was on the team that helped with the program. The federal government gave out, I don't know how many $1 trillion in different sorts of funding packages throughout the last 3 years. One of them was the ARP funds. Part of that came to TDHCA, which is the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs, for relief for homeowners that suffered during COVID lockdown provisions and all that. This was the corollary to the eviction relief, where you couldn't evict renters. So this was for the homeowners. And so basically, if you lost your job, if you weren't able to run your operation, couldn't pay your taxes, there was some relief set up. Well, TDHCA reached out to us, since our firm represents almost all the large counties, school districts, and cities in the state. And we created a letter that was a notice that we sent to all delinquent taxpayers in Lewisville ISD that were eligible for this program. And it was a letter that notified them of the program and what they needed to do. We didn't make the decision. We have no control over whether people are able to get the funds. But what we do is we helped inform them and help them get the information they needed from the tax office and the documents they needed. And then we directed them to the state agency's website to follow through. All of the money paid went directly to the taxing entities, not to the individuals. So there was no interplay where someone could take it. It resolved their debt. And in Lewisville ISD, over $1 million was paid for Lewisville ISD residents. Now that includes the county and the city and everything, but to pay off their taxes to help with people that were suffering. As we like to say, there's some people that like that, some people that don't like that, but it wasn't coming back to us individually, so we might as well use it while it's there. So we managed to get a lot of people contacted about that, and we're really happy that the people that were eligible were able to get some relief, because our main goal is resolution. We want to get the district where it needs to be in with its recovery of delinquent dollars. And this was just another way we were able to do it. And so we're really thrilled. There's still money available, so people are still eligible. And we're still mailing on those delinquent taxpayers so that they're aware of it, because if we don't get it here, it's going to go to some other state. So that's a lot of ground to cover on a topic that's maybe a little bit outside the ordinary for the school district, but I'm appreciative of the opportunity to come talk about this. I know Paige and I have kind of geeked out about this, and so I wanted to share it with y'all.
I just wasn't aware of that loophole for the businesses. Hadn't been in a district with such high property values. So.
Anybody have any questions? So thank you, Corey and Chuck. I think since we entered into the relationship with Lineberger and Elsie, we've seen two things happen that are material for us and for our community. One is we have more transparency as to what's going on. We didn't have this kind of visibility as a board, and that was an issue for us. And two, the collections are higher. And so at least we know they're higher because we've seen a comparison. Before we didn't see it at all. So we budget differently, as you might be aware. We budget differently than we did in the past because we're budgeting for a higher level of collection, and that's thanks to you guys. So appreciate that. And our taxpayers are grateful too, I'm sure.
Thank you, Ms. Bell. Really appreciate that. Anything else? Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go back up to discussion item number 1, human resources substitute staffing update. Mrs. Smith.
Good evening. So I come to you tonight to really just give you an update on where we are with our substitute staffing and with our partnership with ESS. So as you may remember, about this time a year ago, we entered into an agreement with ESS for them to provide us our substitute staffing for the district. At that time, our fill rate was 57%, and we had 332 active substitutes in our pool. The agreement that we signed was from December of 21 to December of 22 with an anticipated expenditure of about $6.1 million. And of course, included in that was the cost of all of their recruiting, their screening, the hiring processes, obviously payroll, unemployment, FICA, workers' comp, everything related to them being their employee. And the contract negotiations also included a $5,000 credit that would be applied monthly if ESS did not meet an 85% fill rate. So currently, now when you move forward, we have 828 active subs through ESS. So we went from 332 to 828 active subs, and we now have an average fill rate of 71%. So we went from 57 to 71%. And we are receiving the $5,000 monthly credit because we have yet to obtain the 85% fill rate. So we are receiving that monthly credit. I would just say to you, I don't have it listed there, in addition to this and separate from ESS, we also still have 97 permanent subs on our campus that are LISD employees. And those subs are like our employees, we pay for them, but they certainly help to offset the need for a substitute on a campus. As you remember, the year before, in the height of COVID, we had 2 at elementary and 3 at the middle and high school. And this year, we now have 1 at every elementary and 2 at all the middle schools and high schools. So right now, we have 96 permanent subs. We have 9 open positions. So just to talk a little bit about the cost and the expenditures. If you notice, the numbers in yellow are all true cost, what we have spent since we started the agreement with them. You can see that November and December are also, those are just projections, and January is also a projection because we don't have those numbers yet. I do want to point out that January is a high rate for a couple of reasons. Traditionally, January is our highest month where we have the most sickness and the highest need for subs. It also tends to be a bit longer of number of days, and it's just, this is most definitely the worst case scenario and projection for January. Goodness knows we hope that it is not that. We hope that as everybody goes into the holiday, comes back a bit healthy, and we don't have that kind of cost, but that is why you're seeing a projection of January, because historically that has been our highest month. When you look at the cost of our actual expenditure right now is right at $3.5 million. When you add in our total expenditures, it's right at $4.5 million. So based on our estimate right now, based on these numbers, we would be paying for the year, December to December, $5.3 million. And if you recall, we budgeted $6.1. I do want to also add in here, because I think this question might be in the back of your minds, if we had an 85% fill rate. So that's our goal. And if we were to actually have that 85% fill rate, we would still be at 5.733. So we would still be under our $6.1 million based on our estimates and our projections of what we're looking at today. So when you look at comparison with districts around us that are also participating in ESS, you can see, and I've broken these down by month for you, so I have August and September here. You can see in August we had a 77% fill rate, and Denton and Frisco had 88 and 92% respectively. and I'll just keep going through the months. In October, we had a 75% fill rate. We dropped in November to a 68% fill rate. So our fill rates are certainly, when you compare our rates with Denton and Frisco, also in ESS, we do not have the same fill rates they do. And so I think a question would be why. Now, I don't have a magic wand to answer all of that, but I will tell you that Denton, this is their 4th year with ESS. Frisco is in year 3 with ESS, and they have had time over those years to build their sub-pools are considerably bigger than ours. Denton right now has right at 1,000 subs in their pool, and Frisco has 1,300 subs in their pool. But I will also say in a year time, they've built our pool to over 800. They've added 300 subs since August for us. So I do think that we've made a lot of gains in the right direction. I just don't think we're in year 1 and they're in year 3 and 4 of their partnership with them. On a side note, Denton has what they call building-based subs, which are like our subs, our permanent subs. They have anywhere from 2 to 4 building-based subs on their campuses, but instead of them being employees of Denton, they're employees of ESS. And so that does help to pop their fill rate quite a bit higher when you consider those subs. So we did a little kind of quick math to try to ask ourselves, well, what if we moved our permanent subs to ESS? But even with, once you take in the rate that they charge, and you also then consider all of the benefits that we pay for them to be an employee, it's really costing us about $3,000 to have them on our list versus at ESS. So it's not exactly apples to apples, but that is what the comparison would be. So just as a reminder, our daily rate for a certified sub right now is $115. We're invoiced by ESS $147, so it's costing us $32 a day for ESS to secure the sub for us. The bill rate, as you may recall, is 1.2845. Then I've just included by month for you. I know I've shared this with you before, but here is just by month what we're being invoiced, what the LISD sub cost would be based on our sub rates, and what the difference or the delta of that amount is. A couple of things to just consider. The LISD office has not been fully staffed. I think that is a thing to consider. They have had some struggles with staffing our LISD office, just as we've had struggles with staffing. We've been working with them now for 12 months. 6 of those 12 months, they were fully staffed with their 3 employees. Other than that, they had 1 month that they had 2 of their 3, and they had 1 month that they had 1. They actually had 3 weeks that none of those positions were filled. And so what they were doing were flying people in from the corporate level to come work our office. So even when they were short-staffed, they were flying people in from corporate to keep our staff suite opened and operating. And honestly, I tried to talk 2 of those people into staying. I understand they were from corporate, but they did an excellent job and really helped us in that short period of time that they were here build some of our substitute shortages. So I went ahead and added here just for information what our fill rate or what our daily rate of pay is, and you can look at that with others. Denton and Plano pay a higher substitute daily rate than we do, but we're pretty comparative to the other districts. When you look at long-term pay, it is the same way. Denton and Plano are paying. Plano has historically paid a long-term sub a higher rate of pay, but we're pretty comparative with the other districts. We currently, as of today, have 57 subs in long-term positions. Some of those aren't. Some of the campuses choose to put a long-term sub in as a day-to-day request rather than putting it in as a long-term. But as of today, we had 57 sitting in long-term positions. And with that, I would just say, I'm happy to answer questions. I do not believe that we're where we want to be because, 85-90% is definitely where we want to be. But I do believe we are trending in the right direction. And I do believe that the substitute shortage is just a side challenge of the staffing shortages that we face with teachers and with our paraprofessionals and the other positions. But I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Sorry, Ms. Taylor.
Ms. Smith, and this is probably me, again, being newer to this position. Did we track the fill rates before we signed up for this program?
Yes, our fill rates were down in the 30s and 40s. The January that we started looking at this, we got as low as 27. Oh. And so our fill rates, you could see it average that one year at 57%, but to have an average of 57%, that means some months we were substantially lower than that.
Gotcha.
Oh, no, pre-COVID, y'all were in the 70s. Lewisville was in the 70s pre-COVID.
Okay.
I've not experienced pre-COVID.
Yeah, remember in January of last year when we did this, remember we shut down school because of really staff issues with COVID. So we struggled in this area. Now, we had started talking about this in December, though, I think,
Yes.
right? So
we had passed this in December, and we had went ahead and started this plan, but January was, for us, we reached 1,100 employees out in January, and we couldn't sustain that.
yeah. So when you see a credit issued for those months, generally speaking, those are really hard months that we would have had a hard time anyway.
Yes.
It was the deck was stacked against the provider, given that month in particular where we had quite a bit of shortages.
We started the second week or the first week of February
Okay.
because they were in the process of training and moving over records and all of those things in January. And I just went right past a couple of key points. I apologize for that. I do want to say that we have renegotiated the terms of the potential contract, and we will now be receiving a $10,000 credit each month instead of the $5,000 credit. And that is all compliments to Craig and his negotiation abilities. I appreciate that, Craig. And then also, he worked through a reimbursement for us that we're receiving a credit of about $4,600 for the months that they weren't fully staffed. So they negotiated some money back to us on the months that they weren't fully staffed, even though they were operating and covering the phones for us. They still negotiated that with us. So thank you, Craig, for that.
My other question was regarding the credit. The projection, does it reflect the credit, or does it not reflect the credit? The projection that you have that's like 5.3 million?
It does not reflect that.
Okay.
So the amount we pay is based on our shortage, or the number of people that are out, and then they credit that back through billing, through the accounting office.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure what to ask yet. I know I struggle with the amount of the contract, although I know that they've helped us a great deal right now. I can't imagine getting through all of this without this contract right now. I'll ask my board questions later when I figure it out.
And I will be completely honest with you, I'm struggling as well because I would want us to have an 85% fill rate, but I do know this is a process and not a sprint, and I do think we've seen a positive trend, but it isn't where I don't want you to, it isn't where I would want it to be
It's a
either.
process. I'm just not the most patient person on the planet.
Are we still doing just 1-year contracts with them?
Yes, it is still a 1-year contract with a 30-day out.
I really appreciate, I sent you 12 questions on this, and I really appreciate that you worked all of the answers into your presentation. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
I think we'll always struggle a little bit with the disparity of what we could do on our own versus an outsourced provider. Within that business case, though, weren't we able to use some staff a little bit differently by doing this? That somehow that has to be incorporated into the.
Yes, so they have 3 staff members. 2 of those staff, well, they've restaffed now, but when it originally occurred, one of our staff members stayed and worked with ESS and became an ESS employee. And then one of them chose not, they had that choice. One of them chose not to and actually took an opening in my position, in my office, and is now the receptionist in my office. So it did allow us to have that option.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mr. Miller, just real quickly, I want to say thank you so much to the board. I wish we all had a crystal ball of knowing exactly how to resolve these staffing shortages that we face, but thank you for giving us this year to work through this, and I appreciate Ms. Smith and the team. They've gathered data upon data upon data just to be sure y'all have all the information you feel comfortable needing to make the best decision you can, and whatever else you think of, we'll do our best to get it for you. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Learning and Teaching, Ms. Gall.
Okay, Learning and Teaching is up. Our first presentation for you tonight is our annual bilingual ESL update. Danielle Oakley will be sharing with you along with Esther Montanez. Danielle is our secondary ESL coordinator, and Esther is our elementary bilingual ESL administrator. As they make their way up, just a thank you to their leadership under Karen Seeley and Karen Spalding.
I'm Danielle Oakley. I'm your secondary ESL coordinator, and I'm very excited for you guys to learn a little bit about how our program's been doing this year. We're going to go over the same information that you've seen in the past, just all of the good updates, and talk about how we are in comparison to the region and the state in a few different areas. We've continued to have increased emergent bilingual enrollment, and we're now at 21% of the district being served by a language program. I know, it just continues to go up. Compared to the rest of the state, we are now slightly higher than the data that we have from the state. They are at 20% statewide, and we're at 21%. And we continue to have consistent enrollment across all grade levels. Our language diversity, we have 91 languages that are currently represented by all of our families. Within our language programs, there's 74 languages. Spanish continues to be our largest language population, but in comparison to the state, we are at about 71% Spanish-speaking students, whereas the state has 90% Spanish-speaking. So we have a lot more students that are speaking a wide range of languages than across the state. Something that we wanted to highlight was not just the diversity of our students' language backgrounds, but the diversity of where they come from. And we've got students that come to us from all around the world, and some of those countries have been experiencing some circumstances and conflict that has caused them to miss out on semesters or years of education. And so we wanted to point out that our students are not just coming with a language need, they're coming with a whole student, whole education need. And the top languages, or the top countries, you can see up there, There are several where the children that are coming are on temporary protected status, including Burma, Honduras, Ukraine, and Venezuela, as well as many others that are on that list. And as far as how that can impact our students in the classroom, it takes anywhere from 6 months to 2 years to become conversational in a language. In order to become academically proficient in a new language, it can take 5 to 7 years. However, if you've missed big gaps in educational experiences, it can take 7 to 9 years. Yet the state continues to assess our kids, every single year, regardless of those background experiences and those language needs, on, TELPAS, STAR, and of course the graduation requirements. How we are serving our students in the different programs, as I said, we have a smaller percentage of Spanish speakers than we have in the other languages, and so our participation in dual language is lower than the state, and our ESL participation is significantly higher. We continue to have, we've seen the refusal rate in the past, we continue to have a much lower refusal rate by our families than across the state. And this year the state has given us some new data where they've told us how much our students are being served by teachers that are on a waiver. And across the state, 11.5% of students are being served by a teacher who's currently working on becoming ESL certified. And a celebration for us is that we have 2.5%, which is significantly lower than across the state. That ESL program participation, again, this is K-12, this is all of our students in ESL. We have two different models. We have a pull-out model where the students are served by an ESL English Language Arts teacher. And the content-based model is all of their content areas are taught by an ESL certified teacher. The discrepancy in how this is half and half, when you get to the secondary level, it's most likely pull-out because the students are engaged in so many more pathways, whereas in elementary, they're able to serve them through one or two teachers in that content-based model.
One of the subgroups that we are providing information today about is the dual language group that is comprised of students that speak English and Spanish. You have the data there that shows the enrollment of those students since 2019 to 2023. Later on in the next presentation, we're going to look a little bit deeper into that column that's the dual language two-way in the 2022-2023, so you can see how the students are being served there.
Some celebrations about how our students are doing. Our graduation rate continues to be significantly higher than the region and the state, and our plan is, of course, to continue that trend. The number of students who achieve proficiency each year, as you may have remembered from previous years, it's hard to predict because the goalpost keeps changing for our kids. And so each year there's been slightly different criteria that our kids have to meet. This year there will be an added challenge that the TELPAS writing is going to an online system instead of being rated by the student or by the teachers. And the last time that we had a major change like that was in 2018 when the listening and speaking went to online. So we're hoping for the best and hope that our students are able to be successful on that new assessment. With that said, we are outperforming the state in our TELPAS scores. So in all 4 language domains, reading, writing, listening, and speaking, we have a higher number of advanced and advanced high ratings than across the state. So that is a celebration that our kids are doing really well.
Another point of data that we use to monitor our students is the iStation. Despite the fact that all students take the iStation in elementary, the data you're going to see here is just of emergent bilinguals, how they've been doing by grade level, and it is exciting to see that our goal was 74% and each grade level managed to get over that goal. I would like to share with you a little bit of how the elementary side of the program is addressing the students' needs. And we are addressing it by providing curriculum that's in English and Spanish based on the English language arts and Spanish language arts. In addition to that, we are providing some supplemental lessons and resources for language arts in second grade. We worked on that last year for those teachers who have students that are struggling a little bit more because of language, especially the newcomers. And this year we're working on first grade to provide those resources for the teachers. We also have the language acquisition specialists who are providing job-embedded supports within the campus, and we also have the dual language specialists that are coming straight from the district to address any concerns that they have. Also, last year, as you heard from Danielle, we are having a huge influx of newcomers that are coming with different levels of proficiency. And many of our teachers found themselves in a place that they were like, we don't know what to do with them. So this year, with Title III funds, we purchased the Amira Literacy online program, which provides teachers and students with extra information on language and literacy and how they're developing and pinpoint to specific areas of need. So students will have assessments and interventions, and teachers will benefit from resources that are already provided through our adoption program. In addition to that, we heard our teachers when they were saying that our students were feeling down and beaten up because they were not succeeding. So we started a pilot program with robotics for them to, after school, have the opportunity to develop that oral language and be successful creating new projects. And we have 4 campuses that piloted it. They love it, and we're going to be having a focus group in the spring in order to get more information to see how to implement it if needed. Our family and parent engagement continues going on. We have 3 parent collaboratives throughout the year, one of them being the Multicultural Literacy Night in the January. Last year, it was kind of had a couple of hiccups because of the health and medical issues of the winter time, but we managed to pull it through. We also had the parent collaboratives with participation of over 135 parents on each one of them because they were virtual. And this year, we started our bi-monthly newsletter that provides information not only on the campus information or district information, but also what the state is providing for them. And just wanted to share a little bit of information on our summer programs. The newcomer immigrant summer academy is still going on. This summer, it increased the enrollment from 90 that were served before to over 150 students. And we continue providing the Spanish camp, and this year we provided the service to 280 Spanish learners to practice their Spanish during the summer.
Few things that we're doing at the secondary level. We have begun implementing a monitoring system for the language domains. This is just to monitor the students' progress and give us some really helpful instructional data. It is given in the classroom by the teacher to give some targeted, individualized support for our students. And this is funded through Title III as a way for us to get a really good picture of how our students are doing. We have been providing some different experiences for our secondary EBs. For students who were not here when we do the newcomer tour, or when we do the Career Center tours in 7th grade, we take those newcomers in 8th grade and give them an opportunity to see those opportunities that they would have when they get to high school. We've also taken our ESL biology classes from Harmon and Killow to go and experience Liz Dola, and they had an amazing time out there. There's some really great pictures out there on Twitter. And then we also just had a college fair for our high school EBs, and the students and their families were invited to come and learn about all of the resources available for immigrants and language services at the college level. Our SOAR Academy in the summer continues to expand and just do amazing things for our students. We had 287 students attend from all of our secondary campuses, so every single campus in middle school and high school was represented. And we had 41 of those high school students who stayed in the afternoon and gave up every minute of their day for the month of June to complete that Sheltered English 3 course for original credit and make that big step towards graduating before they age out. And looking ahead, both elementary and secondary, we will be continuing to implement these programs to give some of that targeted feedback about how our students are doing. We continue to build our summer programs and expand that as much as we possibly can. And then the professional learning that we provide to our teachers, to our paraprofessionals, and to our specialists, the liaisons and the language acquisition specialists, will continue to build on all of those things. Targeting a lot of different instructional strategies for the changes that are going to happen to TELPAS and STAR this year that are going to impact our students. And as always, we are in compliance with Texas Education Code Chapter 89 and Texas Administrative Code Title 19, and we will continue to be analyzing and monitoring our students' progress and their growth. Thank you so much. Any questions?
As you know, one of my favorite presentations every year. I do have a question, and it's on the slide, and I apologize for not sending this one in earlier. I wrote it down, but I didn't put it in the email, which was students served in dual languages per year. It's the graph with the blue and the red. There it is. So 2021-22 saw an increase of 504 students in the two-way and a decrease of 416 in the one-way. My question is that students choosing different pathways? Am I reading that wrong? I mean,
Say that again.
so, and maybe it wasn't this graph, but in one of the graphs, there's a decrease in 504 students who choose two-way versus one-way, right? In the two kinds of programs.
Correct.
Can students change their pathways?
Yes.
Is that what I'm wondering if that's what that is, or if it's just enrollment?
It's just enrollment.
That
we
is
only
just
have
enrollment.
3 campuses that have the one-way program. We will talk a little bit about that in the next session so you can see it. But we only have 3 programs, 3 schools that have the one-way. So those are the ones. So it's enrollment that you would see.
Thank you for this. This is one, I don't know how you guys do it. I travel to a lot of countries where I don't speak the language. And I've been in a lot of situations lately where I've had to use Google Translate just to get around with the driver. And then we hire a lot of people, and we're measuring English fluency. So it depends on the level of fluency, how much we can charge. And so I just, one of the things that boggles my mind as someone who only speaks a little bit of another language outside of English is how we get kids to a level of proficiency to take these tests and to progress along the learning curve. And so thank you for leading that, and for everyone in the campuses who facilitate it. It's difficult work, so appreciate that. Are you guys on deck for the next one, or?
As we transition, actually, to
Okay.
our dual language
All right.
program evaluation, I'm going to welcome up
Thank you.
Dr. Annie Rivera and Karen Spalding, and thank you, Danielle. And then just give a shout out as well to Sarah Guidry in the back for all of her efforts with the SOAR program each summer.
Okay, so while they're making their way up here, I'm going to go ahead and start, but I don't have the clicker, so if somebody will click for me. This is part of our program evaluation cycle. This is the schedule and shows you what we've already completed. And in fall of 2022, we were here to talk about Spanish dual language. Just a heads up as we enter into this one. We click one more time. This is a dual language program evaluation. Right now we are focusing on the dual language schools that serve both Spanish and English learners. We will be coming back in the spring to focus on the programs that just serve Spanish learners. So as part of this, this is a fraction of the students served in middle school, and that other piece will come back in the spring when we come back and look at the programs that just serve Spanish learners. Tonight, we're going to talk about the enrollment process, participation, and staffing. We will go over all the different program data that have been built into their program evaluation template, and then there will be some findings and recommendations. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Spalding.
Good evening. We included in our presentation tonight a few terminology just as a reminder of some of the many terms, and some of these terms have been changing recently, so we wanted to help keep you abreast of exactly what we're talking about when we say certain things like emergent bilinguals and Spanish learners. It can get confusing, so this is there for your reference as we move through the presentation. The purpose and goal of our dual language education program is to enable our learners to become proficient in speaking, reading, listening, and writing through the development of literacy and their academic skills in both Spanish and English. Our goal is to create biliterate, bicultural, and bilingual students who by the end of 5th grade are prepared to take those advanced Spanish courses in secondary grade levels. And the basic curriculum that is provided throughout these programs is squarely sits within our Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills and our English language proficiency standards as required by the state and is in compliant with Chapter 89.
Program history it started before my time, but it has been well documented. It started in 2008 when the dual language immersion program started to be well researched, and it was considered an additive program instead of the transitional program that was only growing the students in English and not in Spanish. The dual language immersion was going to grow them in both languages. So in 2008, they started the one-way program. One-way meaning that all the students in that classroom were English learners. So as time went by, many of our bilingual campuses started transitioning from their transitional model from the state into the dual language immersion program. And by 2011, we started listening from non-EB parents who were stating that they wanted the program for their kids. They wanted their children to have the same opportunity a bilingual student was having in the classroom. Therefore, in 2011, the dual language immersion program stayed as one way in some campuses, but in other campuses where those parents were asking for it, it started in the two-way. The two-way meaning they have Spanish learners and English learners. We continue moving all our bilingual services into the dual language immersion, one-way or two-way, and in 2014, all our campuses were in. After 2014, we added 3 more campuses which did not have bilingual services prior to the dual language program. So you will see those campuses here. We have right now 3 campuses that are one-way and 9 campuses that are two-way. And usually it is based on enrollment and capacity for Spanish language learners. Who gets in these dual language two-way classrooms? Well, any student that in their home language survey is Spanish and qualifies under the state criteria as an emergent bilingual will be in the classroom. A child that has been in the program as an emergent bilingual but now meets the criteria of proficiency in English, they reclassified from emergent bilingual into regular student, but they stay in the classroom, continuing receiving the services, and Spanish learners whose parents have applied for them to be placed and have accepted the placement. What are the characteristics of this program? The instruction is in English and Spanish, and rotations vary by grade level in order to meet the needs of the students. In kindergarten, in younger grades, we try to have the frequency of the language in the rotation for them to acquire both languages. While in older grades, in 3rd to 5th grade, you will have the week by week in which it allows for instruction and projects that need to be done, and they need that time to complete those projects. The language of instruction is integrating in the content area, meaning is taught within context, allowing the student to apply the language right away in meaningful ways rather than in memorization. Parent involvement and engagement services are very similar to the ones we discussed in the previous meeting for emergent bilinguals. Let me move a little bit forward to talk to you about how do students come into the program. There are 2 opportunities that we open for the parents to come to apply for the program. One of them is the priority enrollment, in which if the parent already has a child in the program and this is a sibling coming in, they will have priority for that child. Also, if the student is participating in the dual language program in Lily J, in the employee, they can continue the service as well. And any other employee that is interested in having their child participate can take advantage of this priority. It opens between November and December. At the end of, before the holiday break, it closes, and we don't do priority for anybody else. Then we open the general enrollment at the end of January. How do we place students? It's tricky. What we do is we have to wait for English learners, emergent bilinguals, to come in, and then we try to see how we can match them if there's space and if we can match them in. So once it's a constant negotiation with the campus leaders in which we just ask them, do you have opportunities or any spaces? And they will open 1 or 2 at a time. And then the next person in the line in that school of choice is the one that gets placed. Okay, so right here you will see how the placement data has been working since 2017, 2018. We have had a steady number of applications, except in the 2020. We're expecting that. The placements offer, like this year, we offer 118 placements, and we still had 39 students that stayed on the wait list. The schools that show more interest in our applications are Prairie Trail, Independence, and Vickery. As I promised, because if I promise, I have to deliver, we talked about that last 2 columns over there and the 2-way dual language where we had 2,300 students. 20% of those students are served as Spanish language learners. Right here, you will see how those students are placed in the different grades. In order to serve these students, we will not be able to do it without our fabulous teachers that really worked extremely hard to meet the needs of our students, and our HR team who helps us meet those positions. This year, we needed in elementary 105 bilingual teachers, and of those 105, we have 1 interim, we have 1 vacancy. It's in reality only 1 vacancy, but I have to say that despite that, what complicated it is that we had 3 resignations after the first day of school, and they still managed to fill it. 68 positions are needed for ESL, and 66 teachers are certified. 1 is interim, 1 is a permanent ESL substitute teacher, and we have had 2 resignations, but they were refilled. Thank you because this is a teamwork. This is not something we can do by ourselves.
Okay, so as we started to look at performance data for the students, one of the things that we did was group the students by cohort year that they entered kindergarten. So just so as you're looking at this, the numbers don't necessarily match up with the enrollment numbers because we had to apply some methodology to it. So it's by their year they started kinder. If students withdrew from LISD and did not return, they were removed from the cohort group because we don't have all the data. There was some interruption due to COVID, but students came back in the program. So, I mean, there are just some data pieces with that were a little wonky to deal with. But that's how we measure our performance data. And so what you can see here is that in 13-14, that cohort group we called 2014, we started with 166, and then we had 107 students complete 5th grade. They're currently in 8th. They were in 8th grade last school year. In 14-15, we had 149 and 102. So what you can see is that a large group of our students are completing the program and staying with us through 5th grade.
Apologize. It's like the Zoom, the Lordy. Okay. In 2016, teachers in LISD got together to work in developing an assessment tool in order to monitor the progress of Spanish learners. This assessment tool is called Performance Indicators for Language Acquisition, and it's just based on performance, on tasks that the students can do based on their grade level as well as language expected. So the teachers look at this tool and created one for kinder and 2nd grade, and one that was going to be a little bit more sophisticated in language between 3rd to 5th grade. This tool is they observe the students once a year, and it will measure the listening, the speaking, the reading, and the writing. So we're looking at tasks the students are doing. So I am showing you this data right now, which is the cohort on 2013 and 2014, because this is the data that Dr. Rivera will later on be addressing, because this is the data this is the cohort that has achieved 8th grade. But, what we do in our PISLA, as we nicely call it, the performance indicators for Spanish language acquisition, is we aim for our students to be within the intermediate and the advanced range. And I have to say that in that cohort, the students perform at 84% in the listening, within the range that we were expecting them, 74% in the speaking, 81% in the reading, and 82% in the writing. Now, looking at our students that were evaluated last year, we're still expecting them to develop or to meet between intermediate and advanced rates. And I have to say that students in listening did about 76 of our students met that criteria. In reading, about 78 of them met that criteria. And it aligns with research, because the research shows that reading and listening are areas that the student is what they call input areas, that the student understands, comprehends, listens. Once you get to speaking and writing, which is a little bit lower, they're in the 48 and the 54%, it's a little bit more complex for students to put language together after they understand it to be able to have the product that we expect from them. So our results show that they are very compatible, and it aligns with that what research is showing us. So of our students that in all the subsets completed, that started in kinder and ended up in 5th grade, we had from 64% in the 2013-2014 cohort to 71% in last year's cohort. We're going to be talking, though, about that 46.4%, which are those students in the cohort of 2013-2014 that continue into our middle school program. And Dr. Annie Rivera will talk about it.
Good evening, everyone. After the students complete their 5th grade year in the dual language program, we have the great pleasure of serving them in our middle school program under the world language umbrella. So the middle school advanced Spanish language program is especially designed for the students as a continuation of the dual language or Spanish immersion program, which we will be later discussing in the spring, or students with significant Spanish language backgrounds whom we've tested into the program because they have demonstrated such levels that they're able to join the class. So the program does represent a nexus of lots of different learners who comprise that class in middle school. Course sequence is as shown on the slide. So we have one course each year, and it does serve as an elective. However, it also counts towards the required graduation credits for languages other than English or LOT. So they need 2 credits under our current high school graduation plan. And so by the time they finish 8th grades, due to the level 4 designation in 8th grade, they will have received up to 4 credits that they can apply towards that high school graduation plan. In order to enroll, students simply sign up for the course based on such eligibility as I described a little bit earlier, and they register for that course during middle school course selection season. The goal of the program is that students continue their proficiency journey towards advanced levels and to increase their intercultural competence and awareness through these courses, which are designed especially for their experience. Here on the slide, you can see a visual of the different learners that we are serving in a single advanced Spanish language program course in any given year. So again, we have Spanish learners from the dual language program, we have emergent bilinguals from the dual language program, we have Spanish learners from the Spanish immersion program, again, which we will discuss later in the spring, and then we also have the students who are testing into the program and our heritage and native speakers. On the next slides, we're going to look at some further data, and again, we're only looking at the Spanish learners from the dual language group, and then furthermore, specifically, the K-8 completers from that 13-14 cohort. As you can see here on the slide, we have some data that are showing scores from the standards-based measurement of proficiency, which is a nationally normed instrument that we use in order to help give us the data necessary to improve and support our world language programs. And so they are tested on reading, writing, listening, and speaking when they come into the program at 6th grade and also leaving our middle school program in 8th grade. And the numbers that you see here are specific, again, to that 13-14 cohort as they've come into 6th and they've left in 8th. Specifically, we are representing here students who have scored intermediate or higher based on our national proficiency scale as defined by ACTFL or the American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Languages, which are the levels that are represented in our Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills for LOT. The percentages here show that our reading and listening are stronger language skills, especially in the incoming 6th grade, since writing and speaking will come later in the continuum of language acquisition. And when we say intermediate specifically for that construct, we define that as understanding main ideas with explicit details, their ability to use language to create that language across a wide variety of concrete topics in a very spontaneous manner, the creation of language in connected form, expansion of that vocabulary, and increasing language control in topics beyond the everyday personal as they expand their spheres of what they're able to discuss in a very unrehearsed and spontaneous manner. And so when we say intermediate, that is really representing a very nice level of proficiency in our students. Data show that we have strong outcomes from our middle school program in speaking and writing abilities as they're able to grow and refine their language through our curriculum. They are really reaching towards those intermediate advanced levels, and also the type of program that we have where we're able to specifically focus on that Spanish proficiency. The intensity of the middle school instruction is quite high because it's very focused, it's highly intentional, and our middle school teachers do a phenomenal job in creating that intentionality in their classrooms such that we're able to produce such levels of proficiency. This slide here represents our students, again, from that 13-14 cohort who've completed up to 8th grade in our dual language program and then moved on into middle school without interruptions, have then completed that 8th grade year where they have an opportunity to not only go all the way through 8th grade, but to also sit for the Advanced Placement Spanish Language and Culture exam. That is a college-level exam that they are able to take in 8th grade, and we're very proud not only of their outcomes, but specifically that we have such a high participation rate. We have 91% tested from that cohort, which is incredible that they have the confidence to be able to test at such a high level. That test specifically is not only about that Spanish language, it's also about their ability to critically think in very high levels of cognitive ability in Spanish. So they're asked to do quite a bit on that exam, not just show knowledge of the language, but apply that language to do comparative analysis, argumentative essay writing, taking various sources of information that are authentic in nature of many different types of Spanish-speaking countries, able to synthesize that information and to really critically think and produce a narrative around those topics. And so it is a very high-level exam, and we are very proud that nearly half of those students are able to walk away from that exam earning college credit.
So from our analysis of data, we find that interest in the dual language program continues to remain steady, as demonstrated by the number of kindergarten applications that we receive. Our program is impacted by the growing number of emergent bilinguals because that impacts the number of Spanish language learner spaces that are available in our classrooms. As was shared with you tonight, we see some higher success rates in listening, reading, and speaking and writing, but it's a celebration to see that by the time they complete our program in our secondary classrooms, their output skills are being strengthened almost as strongly as their input skills. There's a strong increase in language development for our dual language Spanish learners who complete the program without course interruptions. And as Dr. Rivera mentioned, it's very exciting to see the college credits that are being earned. It is a challenge to staff our full program with highly qualified certified teachers. Even with our incredible partnership with HR and the job fairs that we're doing, it is a real challenge to find certified teachers. Some of the barriers that we face in staffing include the additional certification requirements that bilingual teachers have to have. They have to have additional exams above and beyond the requirements of the general education certification, and this impacts both the cost and the preparation that's required, which lowers our percentage of certified candidates that are applying to LISD. A decrease in the higher education programs that are even available for bilingual certification due to low enrollment. Our middle school advanced language Spanish teachers also often have multiple preps as they teach a variety of courses in their course load, both serving students that are in and out of the advanced language program on some of our campuses. So all of these barriers are some of the challenges that we face in staffing our dual language program. It's our recommendation that we continue to seek to balance the needs of our students with those staffing challenges, and keeping our fiscal responsibilities in mind, we'll continue to determine the best program offerings for next year. We always continue to analyze student programs by campus to determine the next best steps to support student achievement. And we work to build stronger awareness as we transition students in those tricky transitions between elementary and middle school. We also work to design supports that are going to continue to develop the language growth in speaking and writing, which are those more complex outputs, and to provide professional learning that's job embedded for our teachers as they serve.
Nada, mi amigo.
Okay. Did you Google that first? Jenny?
I could try to rattle off some German, but it would be very sad. I had sent a question to Dr. Fitzhugh. It's just a curiosity more in comparison, because the other children who are taking AP exams are juniors and seniors in high school and not 8th graders. But what is the average pass rate of 3 or higher for our AP students?
So when I looked at all subject areas, it's about 75%. When I pulled out down to Spanish, it's about 65%. I will also say that the 91% participation rate is way higher than what we get at all of our other courses as well. So all those pieces feed in.
Once again, 8th graders taking a 3-hour exam. Very impressive.
Thank you.
Strange question. You probably don't know the answer to, and that's okay. First of all, thank you for all your work. Y'all are amazing. Your teachers are amazing. But for the PSLUT, is there a correlation between the intermediate or advanced with the students who are also English proficient and testing out? Is there a correlation between that?
No, there's not a correlation. The test is like a formative test that the teachers do, while the other, the test that helps us is a proficiency. It's a norm test, the same as the test that Annie does in middle school.
Got it.
Ours, the performance-based, is just
Performance
observation.
activities. Okay. Thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Just one question, really, and thank you for this. So not the 12 campuses where 3 are one-way and 2 are two-way, but the full immersion. I'm looking at in particular this year's wait list, last year's wait list, about 35. I assume 20 and 21 were probably related to COVID, to being 5. So you mentioned staffing issues. I assume that's because I think there's 2 issues with getting a full immersion program at full capacity or expanding. One is the staffing, but the second is matching kid to kid, right? English speakers versus Spanish speakers in this case?
That is one dynamic. The other dynamic we are having is the newcomers. Like in many of an example, Prairie Trail, that has been one of our campuses that we can do a 50-50 almost in enrollment. They are getting so many newcomers that it's depleting on the availability of spaces for the Spanish language learners.
I would just add that our obligation is to serve our students that require bilingual services,
Yeah.
and so then that sometimes tips the scales in our
Yeah.
classrooms where they're not able to be true 50-50 partnerships of one English learner to every one Spanish learner. We have more English learner, emergent bilinguals in our classrooms than spots for those Spanish learners.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, there's always pressure to expand the full immersion programs, and even at, as we have in the middle schools, and even pressure to broaden that. And I think it's a great enrichment program, right? I think is the right terminology for that portion, but certainly appreciate the primary fidelity is to those who need the services, especially the one-way and two-way programs. And so thank you for the efforts on that, and not just learning the language, but being proficient and having some cultural context. I think that's meaningful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies. Appreciate your presentation. We're now going to transition to Learning and Teaching's final opportunity this evening, which is the Technology and Learning, our first one of the year, and our focus is going to be on science. I welcome Dr. Jonas Green, our Director of Digital Learning, Jennifer Beimer, our Secondary Science Administrator, Renee Martz is our Elementary Science Administrator. Also assisting us, Julia Solnick-Frazier is one of our Digital Learning Specialists, and Zach Bowden is here tonight as a Learning Facilitator from Secondary Science to support us as well.
Good evening. Tonight we are going to be showcasing how a digital device can enhance the learning environment in connection with our curriculum. Tonight we will be specifically focusing on our science curriculum and how we use digital learning to enhance the science curriculum in exploring scientific phenomena. So in LISD, we follow the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, and the state of Texas provides us with TEKS for technology applications in grades K-8. And we utilize the expertise of our teachers to write our own curriculum here in LISD, and we partner with our content areas here in digital learning to help create powerful learning experiences that integrate technology into the content areas. One of the things to note about our technology application TEKS is that they specifically focus on a student not just consuming information, but the student actually being a producer of information and showcasing the knowledge that they uncover through their learning experiences. That's why it's so important for us to have such a strong partnership with our content areas. The technology application TEKS, they focus around 6 strands, and I've put the icons here below that correlate with each of our 6 strands, and you'll see these icons throughout the presentation to highlight different strands that have been integrated into the content area of science. So the first strand is creativity and innovation. In this strand, students are not just consuming info, but they are really being the creators of information. That's specifically highlighted in our strand of creativity and innovation. The other strand we have is communication and collaboration. In this strand, students are using their digital device to collaborate with other students in their classrooms, but also collaborating with experts in the real world. The next strand of research and information fluency, students are using their digital device to uncover information that exists in the world. In the strand of critical thinking, problem solving, and decision making, students aren't just using their device to consume information, but really process and create a deep learning or understanding of the content they're experiencing. The next strand of digital citizenship, we teach them how to be safe as they are using their digital devices. And then the last strand, technology operations and concepts, is really around how students learn to navigate different software, but also how they use the device, such as typing skills and being able to properly use their device in the right way. And so tonight I have our science content experts here to talk about how we've partnered with them in the integration of digital tools within their content areas. We're going to start with elementary first. So Renee Martz, Elementary Science Administrator, is going to share a little about science and how we integrate the digital devices in her world.
Hey, well, in elementary science, we want all of our students to be able to act, think, and communicate like scientists. And the technology really helps support them in being able to do that, to investigate the natural world that's around them, the science phenomena that's there every day for them to investigate. They can use the Zoom features, slow motion, and recording to be able to make detailed observations. They're able to record and analyze data and present that as evidence using different apps such as Numbers, Pages, and Keynotes. They're able to investigate virtually and physically by using our gizmos and STEM scopes and Discovery Ed virtual investigations. And then as we want all of our students to be able to communicate like scientists and have a balanced assessment approach, currently we have our online Canvas assessments in every unit, 2nd through 5th grade in English and Spanish. And then we have 52 performance task options throughout the K through 5 science curriculum that have scientific critique and feedback as well. The image over on the right, it'll show you the teacher page for that. It equips the teachers with LISD student exemplar pieces. It gives them some science thoughts, some technology tips, and then, of course, addresses the science and the technology application TEKS along with it. Okay, so I wanted to show you a few of the pictures and videos of our scientists in action. So here we have students making detailed observations using the IGO microscope connected to the iPad. We have 2nd grade scientists using a tuning fork, the voice memo app, as well as slow motion to investigate sound. This is showing some slow motion as our 4th grade scientists are investigating weathering, erosion, and deposition. And they're being able to take that and compare that to real-world examples around the world as they research. We use our iPads to be able to record our data in digital science notebooks. So here are some 5th graders that are using their iPads to collect evidence and recordings as they make claims about how light is traveling and how it interacts. And they're being able to add that into their digital science notebook. Here's some 3rd graders using some different apps to be able to show their data in data tables and graphs and add pictures from their investigations. So again, as we want our students to be able to take all these things that they're investigating using these tools and be able to communicate like scientists, they're able to use apps such as these that you see to show what they know and can do in different authentic ways using some of these apps. And then they're able to share them out. So you'll see a picture of a student here in just a minute, and he's excited to share his classmates about what he's been able to produce.
So in the experiences highlighted, we really wanted to showcase the partnership between the science content area and digital learning to highlight learners who were using iPads to create innovative products. They're thinking critically about the natural world around them and using that knowledge in their creations, all while practicing their digital citizenship skills throughout the process. And the end result is learning experiences that shift the use of technology from consumption to production that is meaningful and synthesizes their information and learning throughout that process. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Jennifer Beimer, who will highlight how these technology application TEKS impact the secondary science curriculum.
Thank you. So in grades 6 through 12, all science courses share common process skills from the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, or TEKS, and these set a standard for student experience in science. There are 3 skills that really stand out that can be observed in a 6th grade science class all the way to an honors physics class. These are data collection, data analysis, and communicating the results of their learning. So our student iPads are an excellent tool that allows students to collect and organize different types of data. We have external tools that we call probeware that connect wirelessly to the iPad, and they help students collect data with accuracy and precision. Students can gather temperature readings over time, measure water quality with probes, and these probes send data directly to the iPads. Once data is collected, students can analyze the results using apps on their iPad. These apps graph student data in real time so that they can make notes of trends, predict patterns, and draw conclusions. We also have simulation apps, we call those gizmos, that students can use to explore and interact with abstract concepts and make them more tangible, like the parts of an atom, characteristics of things in our universe and our solar system. In all levels of science, students are expected to communicate valid conclusions supported by this data. They do it through lab reports, labeled drawings, summaries, or journal entries. Canvas is an excellent platform for students to communicate their findings to both their teachers and their peers. Students can use their iPads to record lab experiences, annotate graphs and drawings, and submit video, audio recordings of their results. So what we'd like to do, we're going to share with you. Oh, no, this is you.
So the probeware that we are going to see in just a moment being used in science is a prime example of how iPads can be used to investigate the natural world. Throughout their investigation, students are naturally integrating those technology application techniques through data collection, trial and error, communicating their findings with their classmates and teachers, and then defining and refining the problems and solutions, as well as really learning that software mastery. And they're integrating that all into their learning process. Students are both producers and owners in their learning and the learning process. And so now Jennifer Beimer and her team will guide you in taking a deeper look at that.
Okay. So we're going to share with you an experience that comes out of our 6th grade science curriculum. It's Unit 2, Force, Motion, and Energy. And in this unit, one of the learning targets for students is I can measure and graph changes in motion. So we're going to model for you how students explore this learning target by collecting data in real time using the iPad and then the motion sensing probeware. You'll also be able to see how students will analyze the data using an app called Matchgraph. At this time, I'd like to introduce our secondary science learning facilitator, Zach Bowden, and he's going to walk you through the student experience with our devices.
So as you can see, the graph here is a position time graph, and you can see that on the y-axis is the position, and the motion detector here basically just uses sonar, connects seamlessly to the iPad, and it graphs the motion. How far away I am from the motion detector is going to show up on the iPad. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do the first graph. And as you can see, it's going to show the graph on the iPad, and I'm trying to match my motion. So really the student is becoming part of the graph here. All right. And I'm trying to match my red line on that black line there. I've got a little bit of space. There we go. Okay. And so I did pretty good. I've done this is one of my favorite activities to do with students. I've done it a few times. And students love it, and they really, it gives you a score down there, and it lets students kind of compete against each other in a good, positive way, and they have a lot of fun with it. So I can show you another one. All right. Trying to match that graph. All right, so you can see that this one's a little bit different, this gets to show you the misconceptions that students have as well. So a student that had a graph like that, which you can see that they probably didn't understand the y-axis in their position to the motion detector. And one more. All right, so you can see that this one is going away and coming back towards the motion detector. Very similar to throwing a ball in the air and then it coming back towards you. So these are things that teachers get to explore in their classroom. Students get to really make their motion come alive and see not just like what is happening in the graph, but like how does it affect my motion. So thanks a lot.
So we hope you can see how technology is integrated into our science curriculum. This type of experience can be used as an anchor experience at the beginning. It can be brought in later to engage students. Another thing that teachers often do with this is they'll have students pull a scenario from a hat and they have to walk it out without the black line. So they try to match a scenario. The students actually become part of the graph. There are also many ways that it can be used to extend thinking beyond the scope of the learning target. I've also included learning targets from both 8th grade and a physics course, so you can see that this is not the only time in 6th grade that they would interact with this type of device and probeware.
So I invited the science team here so you can see the power in students not just learning concepts, but experiencing concepts. And that creates a powerful, deep learning experience. And that can't be done without our technology devices. So thank you to the team for highlighting that. We will take any questions that you have.
I guess my only comment was to say that I'm surprised that science was the one chosen. It's shocking.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Thanks for staying late.
Good job.
Okay, Chief of Schools report. Dr. Rapp, you're going to take this?
Yes, I'm going to ask Ms. Upshaw and Ms. Clark to come on up. We've got just a brief reminder about the targeted improvement plans. Of course, you heard about those last month. You've had more time to take a look at them, and so if there's any questions at all about our campuses that have targeted improvement plans, we're happy to address some of those before they come before you for a vote on Monday night.
Okay, we're here to provide a brief summary of our targeted improvement plans. This year we have 3 campuses that have been identified. 2 are comprehensive progress and 1 comprehensive identified, and the middle schools are the 2 comprehensive progress. So the first one is Durham Middle School. We have 2 areas that we're really focused on as our levers, where we feel like we can leverage all the skills and learning that teachers can receive this year. So the first one is compelling and aligned vision, mission, goals, and values focused on a safe environment with high expectations. There we're focused on relationship-centered learning to build trust among students and staff, a positive and safe school culture, as well as supporting that with administrator trend walks and regular feedback to teachers. And then also 5.1 is one of the levers, effective classroom routines and instructional strategies. And there we want to encourage productive struggle and cognitive lift for our students in the classrooms at all grade levels, promote critical thinking and with scaffolded supports. And then we also are implementing the second year of the blended learning model for our English language arts classes in grades 6 and 7. For Huffines Middle School, we're focused on daily use of high-quality instructional materials aligned to instructional planning calendars and interim and formative assessments. And so far we've been focused on building teacher capacity in the classrooms with classroom routines that positively impact learning, focused and improved teaching and learning time through lesson plan standards, and then campus professional learning through lunch and learns with effective instructional strategies, and then turning around and implementing those in the classrooms. And then data-driven instruction, something that's not new to us, but we are getting back to training in data collection and software and data analysis, using PLCs to review that data and look at common formative assessments and evaluate the results, and then identifying student needs for interventions and extensions.
Okay, and so next up is Mill Street, where we talked about this a little bit last time, but we are looking to align the vision there. That's a fairly new campus for us, and so we are looking at how do we make sure those restorative practices are in place on that campus. We're giving teacher feedback about their classroom culture, and then having a common vision from that leadership team to make sure it's passing down to all the teachers and the students. And then with 5.1, of course, we're always trying to improve our effective classroom routines and instructional strategies. So really being clear on the learning targets in the classroom and what those are and having students articulate those, working on our vocabulary strategies for our ELL, and then coaching cycles with the teachers. So every teacher on the campus at Mill Street will participate in a coaching cycle with the title coaches there. So for our next steps, we are bringing our TIP plans to you on December the 12th for action to have approval on that. And we are in the progress of our Cycle 1. We just submitted that to the region office kind of to give us some feedback before we do our formal submission to the state. And then we have also started, which already have put that into place too, our Cycle 2. So that's in front of the region office to give us feedback before, again, it goes to the state. And then we, as you can see, kind of progress through those cycles. And then we have our campus visits where they will actually come out to our campus at Mill Street and kind of conduct just to give us feedback on how we're doing and how they can see those things that are taking place. So that's kind of our next steps of where we are. And any questions for us?
Ms. Upshaw, when you're talking about the data collection, you're simply talking about local data collection about student performance on things like formative or summative assessments, not anything that goes beyond that. It's just, here's how Tracy did, here's how Christy did, here's how Sheila did. What do we need to do to help them move to the next level? Very localized assessment.
Exactly. Yes.
What's that, Jenny? And the data required by TEA.
Exactly. Yes.
But other local data that you're looking at that's just for those campuses.
Yes.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, Paige.
Okay. Thank you so much. Tonight we are bringing the possible first level priorities from our land sale proceeds. Just a reminder that since 2019 we have sold approximately $53 million in property sales were declared surplus properties. The bulk of those purchases were those buses, the fleet that was talked about this evening. And currently we have about $25 million remaining in land sale proceeds. So I'll just go through, and Dr. Rapp, I know, is going to interject periodically throughout this presentation, but I think I have to take us back to the historical, this original list that we had that we brought last fall. But we do know that some of the things on that list have been moved to other fund sources, one being the Colony Project. We're able to pull that out of bond sale money, and then, of course, the Aquatic Center project that we did was also pulled out of there. So we have some things left there, and we'll talk a little bit how those are going to get integrated in our planning tool as we prioritize in the future. We also had an added component in the spring with facility walks when Dr. Rapp was named. Throughout those facility walks, and as a result of our 2x2 meetings, we identified some safety issues, and we believe that we will be able to prioritize some of those this evening for some land sale proceeds use. And then also in those walks, we discovered some 20-year refresh fallout items, and some of those can be prioritized currently for land sale proceeds use, knowing that any project that we bring will be brought back to the Board of Trustees for approval. With the parity issues that were identified in those walks, you'll see that in our planning tool that we use in the facilities process, we're going to incorporate these future planning needs into that tool. That'll help us able to calibrate internally and prioritize some of those things, but those will go into that overall planning tool. So a little bit about what that looks like. It has originated in facilities, and we have used it for many years to prepare for the 2017 bond. What it does is it maps out facility planning based on the facilities assessment document, and we'll go into detail about that in a little bit. But also in that process, it incorporates a needs assessment from the other areas that we consider in technology, in safety and security, fine arts, athletics, and CTE. And so what we'll do is we'll incorporate also those parity issues from the spring 2022 facility walks. Here are some of the big ideas that this planning tool includes. It identifies potential projects by campus and scope. It looks at the budgets. We use outside architects and contractors to help us with that, to estimate those, so what that would look like. Within this tool, it's really amazing. You can select a target year for construction, and if you move that target year, your costs change based on inflationary calculations over time. So we are doing all of that in-house to project for that. So the compounding inflation is built in for every year in a possible bond duration. And then the total project cost is calculated, and the data can be sorted by all of the above criteria. And that's just to show how massive. I'm not meaning for anybody to read that. But when I first started to open this, I was just like, oh my gosh. But what I do want to say is, again, you can sort by facility. You can sort by the area. You can sort by the project. At any time that you change that replacement year over to the right, you've got year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5 of when you would be bringing that project to the Board of Trustees for approval. So it's a very extensive planning process, and because of its systematic nature, it is important to get all of those extra areas into the planning so we can start pricing out some of those things. But based on this, we do have some initial things that we can take care of. I said that we have $25 million left in land sale proceeds. I don't believe that we're ready to prioritize all of that out right now. We need to go back to this planning tool that we have, meet as an internal team with our fine arts, with our athletics, technology, all of our groups together, so that we're able to use the planning tool and identify some of the things that we can take care of. But we do have some items that we have identified here that we can have as an initial list, $4.6 million worth of needs, and knowing that any of these projects would be brought back to you if we were going to move forward with them.
I'll make a quick comment on this chart. So this chart prioritizes the buckets of the remaining safety things from the walks, along with the bucket of the 20-year refresh fallout. Of course, there are some safety things we've already taken care of. Stage curtains was one that was in your original. Those are already taken care of and installed. This wasn't a safety issue, but sound systems in the auditoriums. And so those two buckets, we didn't fully have price estimates when we saw you all last. So if we take care of safety issues remaining and 20-year refresh fallout, this is the price figure for those, which closes the loop on those two categories. The parity list, if you'll remember, was the really lengthy list with Mr. Kosh's fancy colored dots next to that information. And so that's really where we learned about the importance of all of those parity things needing to go into the facility tool that Paige talked about. But additionally, really what led to the inclusion of qualitative data in the facilities review process, which will also help us in terms of adding possible information to that facility tool as we plan for future facility needs. And of course, I know you all have a facilities committee that Mr. Miller is convening, and y'all may want to speak about that as well in the board committee updates. But this will be a good opportunity to dive into, with that committee as well, these needs, along with the facility planning tool and the robust nature of that and how those parity items got worked in there.
Oh, gosh. What I did, Robert. So, sorry about that. I was feeling a little, with all those videos embedded in there, the presentation, I'm like, how do they do that? That's really neat. and I was having a little bit of envy on that, so that's probably why that happened. The next steps are we're going to utilize facility planning tool to identify further prioritized needs for land sale use proceeds, as Dr. Rapp spoke about. Our internal stakeholders will come to a collective consensus to make this recommendation to move forward in identifying these needs. And then, of course, our kind of filters that we'll be looking at for these funds will be in those three buckets of if we feel like it's an immediate safety concern, if it were an item that's going to require a special bond proposition, and we'll get a little bit into that in just a little bit because of the nature of the way we have to run bonds that is different from the 2017 bond with different propositions for different items. And then that third one would be a critical need item, that's something that its life expectancy is not going to make it past the near future date. So
I would just ask, when you look at that tool, to me, one of the biggest things is scope. When we're looking at a project, and I think it's where we got into some of our parity issues in the walks in the spring. So in order to plan, my question becomes like, what is that timeline to get what that scope is for facilities? Am I being completely unclear?
You are. I think the first thing that we have to do with our internal stakeholders is helicopter up and really identify, what are we talking about here? $25 million today, with the possibility of future, you're maybe looking at $25 to $40 million over some time. And so we have to get real clear on, okay, what really get into those three categories and identify safety, looking at proposition, something that might not make a proposition, really identifying those and getting ourselves level set on collective expectations for what we would use the money for. And then on the scope, Randy, do you want to, as we map out scope of those things? That's okay.
Well, and I think while he's coming up too, we have a great opportunity, having learned from the 2017 bond about conversations that need to be had in terms of scope of projects that I think we can talk about in the facility planning tool of if there are things that are within the range of where that project's going to be working in the neighborhood, in the vicinity, and there's elements of that need to be reviewed. They may be within their lifespan, but by the time their lifespan is up, you missed an opportunity that could have been included in the scope. Those are important conversations for us to have. I think that might be to what you're speaking to, too.
Sure, and that's absolutely right. We're taking all the lessons learned from 2017 bond. As Dr. Rapp mentioned, like when we did an elementary 20 refresh, and there was a new wing that wasn't 20 years old yet, but when we leave, it's not done. It's still, the whole campus is complete except for that one wing. We're taking all that into consideration this time. PLM wall panels, all the things that we kind of ran into. As far as the question about scope, that's something that's important to us as well. We can't price these things out effectively unless we nail down that scope. So I'm asking our architect and CMAR partners to price things up. Well, they need to know kind of what that scope is. And so we're definitely taking the steps to identify those as we put this document together.
Thanks, Randy. Appreciate it. Since you didn't bring up a binder, we're not going to ask you a lot of questions. Usually there's a big binder. It's got pictures and stuff. Who knows what's in it, but thank you.
These next two items are together, the review of the 2017 bond progress and future bond planning, and then where we are with our current RFP. And so thank you to Communications for putting this video together that kind of recaps what we did in 2017. So you can watch it and you don't have to listen to me all night.
What does it mean to be future ready? In Lewisville ISD, it means having access to the latest in career exploration. It means providing new, transformative tools for students in the classroom. Sometimes it means getting out of the classroom to explore our own natural environment, or performing at the highest level in front of our community. And it means providing our students and staff with beautiful, efficient, and secure facilities to learn and to teach in every day. LISD voters have shown that they care about investing in our schools. Since 2001, you have approved nearly $2 billion in funding for projects in our district through our 4 bond referendums. In 2017, together, we approved a bond package that has seen LISD's most transformative growth in the district's history. Through your input, and with the help of an 80-person committee consisting of local leaders, parents, grandparents, teachers, representing every facet of the LISD community, we have been able to complete dozens of projects to ensure that LISD remains one of the top districts in the state. As we finalize projects from the 2017 bond referendum, we are already looking ahead to what future ready means over the next 5 to 10 years. And when the time comes, we hope that you'll continue to support Lewisville ISD's goal of building thriving and productive lives in a future they create.
Okay, so real quickly, what we really wanted to do here is to take a little look back at what was successful in the past, where we stand today, and then a look to the future and plans that we have in place for the future. So in looking back, and what did we accomplish with the $737 million bond package? And we've outlined those things in those buckets. The 20-year refresh projects are there. The new facilities at Memorial, Mill Street, Hedrick, Tech West, and the Hebron and the Colony multipurpose facilities. We had district technology needs that were taken care of, athletic and fine arts enhancements, and safety and security projects, all included in that 2017 bond. We have to look back and take a look at the tax rate. Since 2014, the tax rate has declined significantly. That does not mean that the values have not increased, but with compression on the M&O side and with our values being where they are, we've been able to, we didn't have to go to the maximum on our INS side, and we've been able to lower the tax rate due to the compression on the M&O side over time. So it puts us in a real good position, and we know that's going to be, there'll be further compression, as that is the number one priority, it seems like, that we're seeing in the legislative session. When we look at our debt service management, and we've talked about this numerous times, our practice has been to use our surplus INS funds towards refundings and defeasements. In the last 10 years, we have been able to, because of that, we've been able to save $134 million to the taxpayer. Our recent revisions to CCA Local establish a new course for us to look at our debt management policy, and so now annually we're looking at those defeasance and refunding opportunities on an annual basis at the time of budget and tax rate adoption in August. So today, in our debt service fund, while our general fund is subject to recapture, the debt service fund allows for every dollar of tax collections to stay within the district. So LISD has a strong tax base, which has allowed a debt management strategy of paying off debt early and refinancing and restructuring debt for taxpayer savings. And so what that does is free up capacity for future planning if you so need it. So because of this, we could pursue future bond elections with no increase to the debt service tax rate, or even, you know, in a great world, possibly a reduction in the debt service tax rate. So today, with our ongoing systematic assessment of district needs, our facility assessment document process, our facility walks, and our technology advisory committee, these are all of the elements that we use with our planning for the future. I did want to say a little bit about some changes in the law since 2017 bond. At that time, we put everything in a general purpose bond, but now through the law, you have to do separate special purpose propositions for the items that are listed there. And there is mandatory ballot statement requirements, and Mr. Miller pointed this out in some correspondence recently, and I hadn't really thought about it, but we're the only ones that are held to that mandatory ballot requirement. School districts, the other entities are not. So working with bond counsel will be critical. It's always critical when you go out for a bond, but in these times it is especially critical. So when we look to the future, what we know from the 2017 bond is that our community bond committee was commissioned by the board and provided that oversight and made the recommendations for the 2017 bond referendum. We awarded a contract for a bond consultant facilitator and a bond communications and planning consultant. And those consultants assisted with the four things that are here: community committee meeting facilitation, the planning process, bond communication, and voter information. In our next steps, we looked at in the over 75 bond elections across Texas on November 8th, 2022, many of the school districts similar in size to LISD utilized professional bond consulting services, and we have those lists, and we've been writing about those in the updates. In November of 2022, LISD did formally seek RFPs for bond consulting and related services. The timeline that we set out for that would just be for the 23-24 school year, since we have some unknowns at this time. But the scope of those services included facilitation and engagement with key stakeholders, review of our facility assessment, planning and consensus building guidance and organization for a bond process, collaboration with Board of Trustees and senior administration, and communication and voter strategy on final package. And I would like to note that as a part of the Election Code, Section 255.003, the scope of these services are in compliance with this code and aren't considered political advertising or electioneering. I think that's real important. We'll be talking about that some. So we did receive multiple proposals on the RFP, and our administration is going to conduct an evaluation process to determine if suitable recommendation can be made and brought to the board at the January regular meeting. The committee members are listed here. I would add that Brian Colbeck will also be serving on that team with us. Inadvertently left off the list. So I'll wrap it up and turn it over to you, Dr. Rapp.
So that takes care of reporting on both items D and E, and of course we take any questions from the board at this time regarding this information.
Dr. Bonner. Thank you very much for the information. What you shared is pretty much standard practice in Lewisville ISD, right? But it's not everywhere, so I think it deserves a little highlighting. I hope and trust that we will continue our practice of using our interest and sinking tax rate to defease and refund bonds and save money. Put in another context, you just said $134 million have been saved. That's $1 in every $5.50 from the 2017 bond proposal. So, that's significant, and people need to know that their tax money is being used to save money. So I just want to highlight that. I think it's exciting that we can look at a proposal to do basic things that the district needs for its facilities. I don't know if any of these are questions. Refurbishments, right? Safety and security. It looks like the state language tightened up a little bit on technology that we can purchase, but that doesn't scare me at all because it's going to make us be better in what we do and look for maybe some other ways to do some things that are good for kids. And so I'm looking forward to whatever it is we move toward in working with a bond consultant. Thank you.
Can I add one thing, Dr. Rapp? In recent days, we've kind of been talking to a lot of folks who have just passed bonds and things like that, and I am a little encouraged on some of those props that if you can, you have to really look at the curriculum of things that are going on in some of those facilities, and if TEKS, fine arts TEKS or athletics TEKS exist, that could be a part of the general prop. So we're really, I was encouraged by that from learning from others, and so we'll be working with our bond council, pushing our bond council to really, think about some of those things.
And those guidelines were recently implemented. This was the first cycle, correct? The recent bond issues?
Yes, sir.
So,
it passed in the 88th legislative session, so it would have been May and then now.
Yeah. So this is first cycle. So we'll learn from the recent bond proposals, and that'll get refined. So thank you.
Yeah. So thank you for this. I think the presentation where you talked about the walks you did. I don't know. Everything's got an acronym with RAP. So I was thinking FWD:R, which is forward or facilities walk with RAP. I think that was for all of us. There, she's saying no. Back there. All right. At any rate, facilities walk with RAP, I think, revealed a lot to us. Right. I think it's the first time it's really been done at that level, and opportunity for us to fill some gaps, like literally fill some holes. And so appreciate that, and how we're looking at some other sources of money that we have to fix some of that, and then how we're forward looking. And I think Corey mentioned that we're the fastest growing metro area in the country, and with that, we have a lot of demand on our facilities, and whether we're seeing student growth or not, those facilities exist in strong communities, strong schools. So it's time for us to be thinking about the future, not just this year, but the future, and that's what we're poised to do here. I'm very confident and proud of the board since 2017 and the fidelity, and even everyone that's come on the board, the fidelity by which we've managed this business, if you will, as it relates to bonds and saving money and looking at every opportunity, coming up with policies to help us make decisions more quickly in the event that there's a market shift and we can do some defeasements. There are a lot of things that go into this that may not be understood to some people. So for those listening and watching, this is a very deliberate attempt to start looking at planning. With that, we're going to have a keen focus on the legislature and what they're doing, because the Constitution says it shall be the duty of the legislature to make suitable provision for. So we are responding to the parameters by which they give us. Those are three funds: M&O, INS, and food service. So I appreciate the work on this and look forward to seeing what you're going to put in front of us. And Mr. Martin, I assume, is playing a key role in that in January, and the others that you had on the list.
Okay, and finally, thank you so much. We are at the December 12th regular board meeting consent agenda preview, and our three categories are listed on the agenda item, and I'll go through those fairly quickly. The new bids tonight, the two that we're bringing of interest, are on the office supplies. The Tarrant County cooperative bid for office supplies is still out there. It hasn't been awarded yet. We've been using that for the past 10 years. What we want to do with this is move to multiple options for office supplies, and that is just to do both of those, the Tarrant County and to multiple contracts for office supplies, where we can get the best deal and meet the needs of the campuses and departments. On the college preparation assessments, these are the contracts for our valid, reliable, norm reference college preparation assessments that are universally accepted by institutions of higher education. We do get some monies, a reimbursement from the state for each of these exams that we track internally, but there is an added cost to that. It doesn't cover all of that. So we probably could have put that, well, I don't know if that's an unfunded mandate or not. It probably would be if they are reimbursing that, so I'd have to think about that a little bit. On annual purchases, the first one is the renewal of substitute staffing services. Ms. Smith has reviewed this in detail this evening, and so I won't go into much detail with that. With the renewal of the district dashboard solution, this is just our Edugence dashboard that you're very familiar with as the Board of Trustees that houses all of our district data. The history behind this is we wanted to have a dashboard to monitor our student data in one place. Another renewal is our internal audit and other services. If approved, this would be the third renewal option. Those are the three firms listed there, Gibson, McConnell, and Jones, and Pope Audit Group that we've been using for our internal audits. The Omnia Partners is the annual approval of our timekeeping system that Human Resources and Payroll uses to track our time for hourly employees. And the last item there is the renewal of the delinquent tax collection attorney services, which you heard Mr. Fickus and Mr. Elsie present on this evening. This is renewing for an additional 3 years, and that would be the final renewal that we would have. And after 3 years, we would have to go out for an RFQ for the future. So that is your consent agenda preview for the regular meeting on December 12th.
Questions? Okay, last item is the board committee update. Just go around the horn. If anybody, a committee chair, buddy, Dr. Bonner, you want to go first?
Yeah, I want to hit just one thing that's maybe not on the list. It's really a committee that we closed out was the Superintendent Evaluation Committee, and I wanted to reference that because it will be on next month's agenda. So Ms. Prosnick's work with me and Ms. Sells, that was a long time ago, seems like, will be on full display. So anyway, that'll be a January item and an April item for formative data and a June item for summative. So I know Dr. Rapp is looking forward to that.
Well, tomorrow
it'll be great.
Tomorrow we review agendas. I'm sure that it's already mapped out there.
And that is one reason I mentioned it tonight, to make sure it was on the radar.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Dr. Bonner.
Audit committee is rolling along with our facilities with McConnell and Jones, and we have a date for the transportation internal audit kickoff for January, and then it is my hope to bring forward to the board in January a visual display for us to follow up on what we've been doing and so forth.
Great. Thank you for that. Did you have anything? I'm going to go through a few. Just note that the board officers will be meeting with the auditors this Thursday at 3. Is that a pre-read on the CAFR or just a...
Yes, I'm
first
hoping
read?
it is going to be a first read on the CAFR. Yes.
Okay, thank you. As it relates to what we formerly called the strategic plan, which is now being called the long-term plan, that's really, I'm going to push that over to RAP and the Chief of Staff, Dr. Miller, and they will be guiding us on that in the next steps. Right.
Actually, the committee has met twice, and we're going to meet one more time next week. And then in January, the committee is going to come and give y'all an update on what their priorities were. Right now, we've kind of gone through goals, and this next time they're going to prioritize those themes and then specific topics for suggestions. And then in February, the district leadership will come back with y'all with the full plan of what strategies they're going to focus on for the next 3 years.
Great, thank you. Legislative committee, we don't really have any updates. The legislative day is on the 14th, but we have not met outside of the preparation for the last forum for the legislative delegation, and so we have the legislative day coming up on the 14th, and there is a Denton County legislative day Wednesday this week. Breakfast kickoff with and then superintendent review. Dr. Bonner mentioned that. I had that down here, and I think that's it. Did I miss anything? Debt strategy? Close? We did our work. Okay, and facilities, I think Ms. Maloney mentioned facilities, so I did, at the request of administration, put together a committee that right now is myself, Dr. Bonner, and Ms. Prosnick is going to chair that. I may roll off of that, but I'm just going to kick it off, and Jenny's going to organize. Jenny, are you listening? We're just, okay, yeah. So good. So you didn't know you were the chair? No, you said you were. No, I miscommunicated, but any rate, all right. If there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned. The time is 9:47 p.m.